Hello and welcome to Voice of the Province. I'm your host, Troy Glover. Tonight's show we'll be talking about immigration and job opportunities in the province of New Brunswick. Today on the show I have Krista Ross, member of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, Robert Burroughs, who is a member of the New Brunswick Student Alliance, and Karla Pooley, who is from Spurs. Now, you guys, if you don't mind, would you mind explaining the position in your job and what exactly you do? Probably starting with you, Krista.
Sure. I'm CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, and we're a business association that has nearly 1,000 members. And the reason I wanted to join you tonight is to talk about some of the newcomer programs that we offer for businesses, but as well a resolution that we've recently passed through the Canadian Chamber, and a couple of other programs that have to do with immigration.
So I'm the Executive Director of the New Brunswick Student Alliance, which is a collective of student unions at the university and college level from across the province. We represent nearly 13,000 students, and we are their voice between the student unions and the government of New Brunswick.
And I'm the head of talent of Spurs Consulting here in Fredericton, and I use a lot of immigration programs to bring in highly skilled IT workers to work on our projects.
All right. Now let's start off with the big question. Why is it important for the survivability of business in New Brunswick to encourage and facilitate immigration?
Well, the biggest reason is that our population is aging here in New Brunswick, and we really need to bring new people to enhance the population. So one of the best ways to do that is through immigration. Whether that be newcomers who are interested in finding a job here, in starting a job here, or in going to school here.
Now, New Brunswick is home to a few post-secondary institutions that house many foreign students. Are we doing enough to keep talented and well-educated students here in our society?
Well, maybe I can speak to that a little bit. Recently, the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, we got a lot of support from the New Brunswick Student Alliance in writing a policy resolution about attracting and retaining international students through Canadian work experience. One of the best ways that we can keep talented newcomers in our province and in our country after they finish post-secondary education is to make sure that they have a job here. So we wrote a policy resolution that was actually just passed this past weekend by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, which means it's going to be part of their advocacy platform going forward. Maybe Rob, you'd like to speak to some of the points in it that were particularly of relevance to the students.
Yeah, so one of the recommendations that the resolution started off with was to extend eligibility for the Canada Summer Jobs Grant to international students. So that's the federally funded summer jobs program. Currently, the provincial summer jobs program, so the SEED program, international students can access and are eligible and have been hired under that program. Unfortunately, under the federal program, the laws are a bit different, and as a result, they can't. And so one of the things that the Chamber has been pretty adamant about is opening those jobs up to international students so that they can start counting that work experience.
Now, in your guys' opinion, what would you say, why would you say diversity might be important in both the cultural and professional aspects of society?
Well, I just think it's important. I mean, people from other cultures certainly enhance the fabric of our community, but they bring different skills, they bring different backgrounds, and New Brunswick wants to be a great export province. How better to be ready to do exporting than to have people from other cultures, other countries that can bring those backgrounds to us and bring an international flavor to our communities.
So from an employment point of view, we have international clients. Formerly I used to work at McCain, which is also an international company. And international companies need international workforces. So whether it's cross-cultural communication, whether it's having a different mindset, it always benefited us to have lots of different personalities and cultures to help the business succeed.
Now, when it comes to education or running a business, what hurdles do new immigrants face versus those that are probably already currently in the province?
Well, I would say that the biggest hurdle that a newcomer would face, whether they be a student in post-secondary or a newcomer that's here trying to start a business or looking for employment, the biggest hurdle that they face is their network. And I think there are other barriers that make it more difficult. When a newcomer arrives here, you know, they haven't got a bank account set up, they don't have, there's a lot of things that they need to establish. And when we talk about cross-cultural training and awareness, just the way that we do things differently here than in other countries. But I would suggest that that network is the most important thing. And we've actually recently signed an agreement that is going to help the students who come to the schools at least here in the Fredericton area to better their networks. And hopefully this will be an example for other communities across the country. They can perhaps take a lead from what MBSA and the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce have done. Maybe you want to tell them about some of the details of that agreement that we signed.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to build on what Krista was saying, when people move to different places, they're looking for certain things. Where do they bank? Where do they go eat? Where do they get their health care? These are the questions that our members ask all the time. And when they start moving towards the later years of their post-secondary experience, so when they start thinking about graduation, they're also asking the question, where do I find jobs? In other words, I've laid down my roots here, I've got an apartment here, I have friends here, I have a network here. How can I stay here? And so we wanted, the MBSA and the Fredericton Chamber wanted to take that conversation a couple years earlier. And we said, okay, how do we get students right from the get-go involved in the Fredericton business community? Because eventually that's the hope. The hope is to get young people to stay in Fredericton, to own businesses, to work here, to stay here, to live here. And in order to do that, they need to be building that network. And so this 2-year partnership that the Chamber and our Alliance have struck will allow our members access to the networking opportunities that the Chamber puts on. So twice a month the Chamber has just a collection for all or a gathering for all the members. Any member can attend, and now through the Alliance, any post-secondary student in New Brunswick can attend those as well.
Now, Krista, the Chamber has a few programs. One is the Business Immigrant Mentorship Program. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. We have a program that was started in 2009. It's supported by the Population Growth Secretariat of the Government of New Brunswick. And the original idea was that people who were interested in starting a business here in New Brunswick could come and be mentored by other business people who had already gone through that process. They could help them with the network of people they needed to meet, the regulatory environment, the laws, all kinds of different things that you need to know. And even if I'm opening a certain type of business, you know, talking about where would be the best place in this community to open that. Would it be the north side or the south side, downtown, up the hill? It really was to help them to be integrated into our business community. So again, that started in 2009. This fall, we're launching our 18th cohort of people going through that program that's going to help them to launch a business in our community. This fall, as an example, we have over 30 training dates, so 30 different programs that these folks can go through and learn from leaders of our business community, learn from professionals, learn from accountants, bankers, lawyers, and all kinds of different people. We have people from health and safety, just a variety of different skills that they will need to have to open their business. We've assisted more than 300 people that have gone through this program, that many of whom have in fact ended up starting a business. And let's see, what else can I tell you? We did win an award in 2011 from Startup Canada for the best mentorship program in Canada. So we were pretty proud of that, and we're certainly excited about being able to offer this to newcomers. So that's one of the programs that we offer.
The program has some one-on-one mentorships going on with it. Can you give me an example of the type of people that anyone that would be participating in the program would meet?
Sure. Well, we have a small amount of one-on-one mentoring. And in the beginning, it was all one-on-one mentoring. But what we found was that group mentoring was better for the group in entirety, because generally speaking, people need to know a lot of the same information. So they need to know about banking and accounting and legal services and that sort of thing. So we tend to do most of those things in a group. The one-on-one mentoring would be more geared towards if someone had a very specific request. If they were looking to open a certain type of agricultural business, we could match them up with someone who perhaps had some expertise in that area. So that is more of an at request and ad hoc basis. The mentoring now is done in more of a group setting.
networking also takes part in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain why it might be important for networks to be set up when
Mm-hmm.
for someone that is interested in business in the province?
Well, as Rob has mentioned with the students, it's the same issue. If somebody moves to a province or to our community and they don't have any business contacts, it's very challenging for them to even think about starting a business. So one of the great things about having a business immigrant mentorship program through the Chamber is that these folks are all provided with a membership or the ability to attend our events. So they can come to all the same networking events that we were talking about that the students come to, and also they have access to, well, we have 3 people that work as staff of the immigration programs, but also the rest of the Chamber team. So if they have a specific need, they have a network just amongst our own team of our board of directors, those volunteers, but plus our staff who can help to connect them to the people they need to meet. So, I can't say enough about how important it is for people to establish that network and get to know people in the community.
If I can just jump in there too, it's a really good example for some of our members. You see international students coming through the education system and seeing that there is a role for immigrants here. There is a role for newcomers, or not the legal term for newcomers, but people who weren't born and raised in New Brunswick necessarily. And I think that's particularly important, especially connecting the Chamber and the Alliance and our work there, through the work that the Chamber does through the BIMP. Certainly seeing immigrants owning businesses and taking a lead in the business community here in Fredericton has been very valuable for us.
Okay. Krista, could you give us an example of some of the different types of people that have been mentors for the program?
Sure. Most of the people that are mentors, as I said, they're lawyers, accountants, bankers, but we also have a lot of small business owners, people who are able to just share the experience of that they've had of running a business. We also have people with an HR background. We have computer people. We have people from the city of Fredericton that can talk about bylaws and regulatory environment. We have people from CRA. We truly have a well-rounded group of people that we use in our training days that can provide just about any type of mentoring or teaching, I guess, that you could imagine. And we also listen to our clients, of course, and if they have special needs that they want fulfilled, if they have certain types of things they want to learn about, we incorporate that as well. So really, the sky's the limit. Generally, people from the business community, either business owners or professionals that work within the business community.
Are there any sort of benefits that mentors get for participating in the program, really?
Well, certainly from what I hear from them, a lot of them have made some great friends, some great contacts, expanded their own horizons. And, for some people, maybe they've met someone with whom they might be able to form some type of business association in the future as well, because that is a type of networking for our business professionals also. And I also think it's just the satisfaction of being able to help someone. In our careers, there are always people that help us. And for them to be able to pass that on and to support another person as they're coming up the ladder or coming into our community, I think that provides a great service, and people want to do that. People want to help. People know that it's challenging when newcomers come here. They know that it's hard, it's difficult, and they are the bravest people to leave the place that they're from and come here without a network, and people want to help them. I think Fredericton and our province are very welcoming, and whatever we can do to make people feel more welcome, I think people really want to do that. I think that's what it's about.
What kind of feedback would you say that there's been from either business owners or Chamber members that are participating in either mentoring or the networking events?
Mm-hmm. I think the feedback we've been hearing is all very positive, excellent. I might pass it over to Karla. Spurs is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. They're interested in hiring newcomers and hiring people who are from here as well. But one of the things, the reason Karla and I met is talking about this very issue and talking about the fact that we see some great resumes come by both of our desks, and even if they're not someone that Karla can hire at that time, she'd like to pass those names along and help support those people in their journey of trying to find a place here in our community. And I would say that as a Chamber member, your company has benefited from that experience.
Absolutely. So we've Like all companies, we struggle to find top talent. There's a war for talent, especially in the IT industry, and a lot of these newcomers coming in are top talent. They're bringing in senior level IT skills. They've worked for North American companies, and when we've hired them, they've provided an immediate benefit to us.
What's the feedback like from the people that participated in the program, or if there were any success stories you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's lots of success stories. We've had many businesses that have started. In fact, just recently, someone who completed our program is the new owner of the UPS store here in Fredericton. And that was pretty exciting. And I think what was also exciting for he and his family were the fact that when he had his grand opening and his ribbon cutting, it wasn't just his own family and the few people that he had met. He had a big crowd there from the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. He had all kinds, the mayor came. He was really proud that he has become a part of this community and that he was starting a business here and that the whole community came out to support him, and he got great media coverage. You know, it was really exciting to see someone who just a few short months ago was not known in this community, and now they're running a business and they're being supported by the community, and the community came out to welcome them. So I think that's just a great thing.
The program itself has expanded to other cities in New Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us more information on that, and if possible, any information about future expansions to other areas of the province?
Sure. Well, the BIMP program, the Business Immigrant Mentorship Program, has been expanded to all of the major centers in the province, but it's also been expanded and adopted in other provinces in the country. It was the first of its kind. It was a pilot project in 2009, and it has been copied in numerous other provinces and used as an example of a great way to help newcomers integrate into the business community. Because of that program, in 2013 we started another program called the Hive, and that's a business incubator. Also was the first of its kind in Canada. Business incubator for newcomers. So we actually have an office space. We are located in the 5th building of the Knowledge Park, co-located with Ignite Fredericton's Planet Hatch. And the great thing about the Hive is that these newcomer business people, they're working.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off right there. We have
Sure.
to throw to a break. Krista, right before break, I cut you off. Would you like to continue about what you were talking about?
Sure. I'm not sure quite where I was, but I was talking about the Hive incubator program for newcomers, and we are co-located with Planet Hatch. The great thing about the program is that those newcomer business people or prospective business people that are starting their businesses in the Hive, they're working right within the atmosphere of a startup community, which is what Planet Hatch is. So they get to share resources, they get to share knowledge. Whenever there's programs happening in Planet Hatch, they get to participate, and vice versa. We have registered 35 members. We have about a 90% success rate. So most of the people that have come to the Hive have started a business. They all have registered businesses, but most of them are actually operating a business. So it's pretty exciting. Again, the Hive is funded by the province of New Brunswick, and it's been a great opportunity for, again, it's those people that have maybe completed the BIMP program and they're actually ready to start a business, as opposed to working all by themselves in their home, maybe trying to get a business going. They have a place where they can co-locate with others, share ideas, share resources. It's really a positive environment, really excellent.
For someone that's able to qualify for the Business Immigrant Mentorship Program, how do they get information on it?
Well, first of all, they can go to our website and reach out to us through that. But basically, they have to apply to be part of the fall cohort, and that would be through Janet Moser, who manages our Business Immigrant Mentorship Program.
Now, not earlier, but like just a few seconds ago, you were talking about the Hive Incubator Program. Is there anything more you'd like to share about that program? Or?
No, I think that's about it. I would like to tell you about a third program we have. Just this past fall, we launched Succession Connect, and that really answered two challenges in our community. One is that many newcomers do come wanting to start a business, but they have a challenging time coming up with the right business idea. At the same time, we have business owners that want to transition out of their business or retire. 75% of businesses in Canada are business owners in Canada are looking to retire within the next 10 years. And I believe it is I have it written down here, about less than 50% of them, 75% want to retire, less than half have a succession plan. So most of them really don't have a family member or someone they want to pass their business on to. So what we're doing is setting up a program where newcomers can be matched with those that are interested in transferring or transitioning out of their business. So this, again, is a unique program. It's a pilot that we just launched in Fredericton. We're hoping that it will go throughout Atlantic Canada, and we've already had lots of people asking questions and looking for more information about our program from across the country. In fact, the Conference Board of Canada in its recent report suggested that this type of a model is one that should be adopted across the country.
We're going to go to the lines for a second here. We have John from Moncton on line. Hello, John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good
Hello.
evening.
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Great.
I got a couple, I got 2 or 3 questions I'd like to ask, as usual.
All right.
Number one, why don't we determine how these skilled and trained immigrants acquire those credentials and then train our own? I mean, we have people left, right, and center that would probably qualify the same if we'd done some training for them. Like, I just don't understand. Who pays for this training? Did they get it on their own, or are we giving it to them as they get here? We got Indigenous couples all over Canada, and that's a collusion course right now between all provinces in Canada with the immigrants versus the Indigenous people. So, why don't we look after doing some of this training that we're saying these people are so qualified for on our own, and if they're that qualified, why don't we find out how they're getting qualified so we still could use our people? You have to look after your own family first. Taxpayers are paying the dollars, and I happen to be one of them. And there's got to be a limit to this. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think we're looking across the water when we should looking within the land of our own. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to jump in?
You jump
well,
in.
Well, thanks, John, and I certainly hear what you're saying, and Chambers of Commerce from coast to coast provide services and programs for both newcomers and local people. The challenge that we face is that we are not keeping up with the population that we need. There's a definite skills gap. I think that universities and colleges are working hard to train people in these areas, and certainly to look at where the needs are. Karla has mentioned there's huge needs in the IT sector, and quite honestly, we haven't been able to keep up with the need right here at home. But absolutely, we want to do whatever we can to employ people who are from here, and if that doesn't fill the positions, then certainly we're going to bring people in from other places who can fill those positions. In addition to that, of course, newcomers also pay taxes. So it's not a matter of, whose taxes are paying for these things to happen. These newcomers come here, not only are they paying taxes, they pay large deposits, financial deposits. And if by chance they don't get their business started, those deposits are not refundable. They are given to the province to pay. They have to be left with the province of New Brunswick. So, it's not like anybody's getting a free participation. In fact, the people that participate in our programs also pay for that participation as well. They pay fees that would help to accommodate them participating. Even though the programs are funded, yes, but there are also some fees that our participants pay to participate.
All right. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, John, I think too that the issue of you have to look after your own first. I mean, the whole idea of our immigration strategy is to welcome these people so that they are our own, that these are the same as all of us. Like Krista mentioned, they pay tax, so even the whole taxpayer versus citizen debate gets kind of thrown out the window here. I don't know that there's so much a distinction as perhaps some in the province and across the country would try and make in terms of the newcomer versus the Canadian. The idea in terms of certainly the Atlantic immigration pilot, and we can talk about that at another point throughout this, Troy, if you'd like. The whole point of that is to grow our base, our population base. We're losing people. We don't have enough people. One of the responses that the province has gone with in terms of a way to remedy that is to boost our population through immigration. And that's international immigration, not domestic immigration. And I think it would be it would be awfully cynical of New Brunswick and perhaps a waste of the talent we have here and the potential talent we could bring here if we were to set up these demarcation lines to suggest that that there's an us versus them. I think that there is a growing sense that the whole point at the tail end of this experiment is for there to be just us, and we are all us.
From an employment point of view, we want the best person for the job. Whether that person is a local, whether that person is a newcomer, we want skills. And the reality is, to Robert's point, is there's a brain drain. So oftentimes we don't have the local skills that we need to grow our businesses, to hire more people, to make more money, to invest in the community. And these newcomers are coming in with senior level skills that are helping businesses succeed.
And also just the idea of what is local. When you talk about hiring an international student who's graduated, they've been here for 4 to 5 years, right? I mean, I don't know how much more local you want to get for that. They're in theory, with the pilot, once they get a work permit, they're on the way to permanent residency. They are Canadian for all intents and purposes.
And even looking at people coming in through the Express Entry Provincial Nomination Program, they come in as permanent residents. And there really is no distinction between a Canadian citizen and a permanent resident. They're here, they're settled permanently, they're not here in a temporary work permit, ergo they have all the rights that any of us have.
And pay the taxes as well.
And pay the taxes.
One of the things that we sometimes comment on is that when newcomers start a business, newcomers don't take jobs, newcomers create jobs. So the programs that we manage, they're all about people hiring others as well. So we're pretty excited when newcomers come here, create a job, create a business, and then hire others. I think that's a great thing.
All right. Coming back into what we were talking about before our call with John, I'd like to go back actually to the Hive Incubator program.
Sure.
And I would like to ask, why is incubation important for newcomer business startups?
Well, it's important for any business startup. Basically, it's to be immersed in an environment where they can get the skills and also have access to the types of, I guess we've talked about mentoring, but the types of information that they would need. Information about whether it be government programs, regulatory environment, all the things that we've been talking about are available to them there. So Planet Hatch is a great example. I mean, great, strong businesses that are coming out of that environment. And some of the people there are local and some aren't, but our incubator specifically for newcomer business people, and it really gives them a chance to immerse themselves in the business community to access all the benefits that are there.
Going on to the last program you mentioned, the Succession Connect. What exactly inspired the creation of that program?
Well, honestly, what inspired it was a lot of business people in our community, but across the country, saying, we want to sell our businesses, but we don't have kids that are interested in them, or we don't have an employee that's interested in it. It's very difficult to find someone to purchase a business. And we thought, we also have newcomers coming in looking to start a business or buy a business. Why not set up a matching program where we can actually match them together? Certainly doesn't take away the due diligence of either party. They still have to go through the same kind of process that I would go through if I was buying a business. I want to take it to my accountant and make sure it's fiscally sound. I want to take it to my lawyer and check all the legalities. I want to take it to a banker and make sure that I can borrow the money to buy it, all the things that would typically happen. But again, because newcomers don't have the network here, they don't necessarily know that, Bob down the street is interested in selling his mechanic shop. But through the Chamber of Commerce, we can provide a safe and confidential environment whereby businesses can list their business for sale. Many businesses don't want to tell people when they're selling their business. They're concerned that it might have an impact on their employees. There might be a feeling of instability. There might be an impact on their clients. So to be able to come to an organization like a Chamber of Commerce where they can safely and confidentially list their business, they probably may still have it listed for sale with their accountant or with a business broker, but this is just another avenue with a different clientele that they can potentially sell their business to.
Now, should this program become a lasting success, or what do you think it will mean for the legacy of local businesses and its workers?
Well, I think it's just going to be a great, if that's the case, and if we start having successful matches, I think success will bring on more success, and I think that it's just going to open up opportunities. If you were a small business owner and you didn't have a family member or someone interested in buying your business, I think you'd be pretty appreciative. There's nothing in a community that I think is more unfortunate than seeing a business close simply because there was no one to take it over.
Karla, can you tell us a little bit about the Atlantic immigration pilot?
Yeah, so we're actually, Blue Spurs is in the process of hiring someone through the AIPP. So this person is coming from Armenia. They are a senior Java developer, and senior Java skills are very, very in demand here in New Brunswick. So he's not here yet, but I found that the program was very, very easy, very straightforward. I worked with Petal whenever I had questions. And the nice thing about the AIPP is that along with the offer, the new employee has to get a settlement plan, either working with the YMCA, the multicultural institution, in this case it's MCAF, and that really takes the burden off the employer. So they find out the employee's needs. So whether they're coming as a single person, with a family, do they have a preference for locations, banking, hospitals, schools? So the employee starts preparing for their transition to Canada 3 to 4 months in advance. And when they get here, they've already got the support of the business plus the Multicultural Association. And it just makes that transition so much easier. And they're already engaged in the community before they even get here.
Now, what kind of labor gaps are meant to be filled from foreign workers or international graduates that we currently are seeing right now?
It's a lot of senior level skills. So with the students, there's co-op programs. I think we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes, because employers like people who have work experience. So in our case at Blue Spurs, we're hiring people who have very specialized or very senior skill sets. Businesses aren't in the business of creating charity. We don't hire people out of the goodness of our own hearts. We hire people either to save money, save time, or make money. So the people that are coming in have these specialized skills to help us save money or make money. With the international students, if they're able to get work experience through co-op, that way that they're going to start developing those skills that they need to get hired on full-time after they graduate.
I think it's also important that we be careful with our terminology here. So I know that foreign workers, for me, that spurred the temporary foreign worker program, which is not the same as what the Atlantic immigration pilot is trying to do. So I think that as we, as we're continuing in this conversation, especially for this province, as the pilot unfolds, and as we start hiring, or as more businesses start hiring, and we start filling out that quota, that we really be careful with our language, because foreign workers does tend to have a connotation that I don't know that we're necessarily looking for in this discussion.
And then just to add, with a lot of these programs, there is a wait. So if we didn't have to hire internationally, we wouldn't. Because if we have someone here locally who can start the next day, who can come in for an on-site interview, from a business perspective, that makes sense. So the person has to be special or bring something special for us to wait 3 or 4 months for them to get here.
Why are businesses struggling to fill some positions here in the province?
Lots of different reasons. Some people have moved out west, have gone to larger centers like Toronto. In the high-tech industry, the center is Toronto. So people go to people go to where the big jobs are, and a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these jobs actually are located here in New Brunswick. It could be new technology starting. So Blue Spurs, we're a partner with Amazon Web Services, and we're into IoT. This is bleeding edge technology that there are very few people in the country that are specialized in it. So either we have to develop it from the ground up, or we hire people who are coming here who already have those skills.
Now, how can a province like New Brunswick encourage people to stay here with their skills rather than take their skills elsewhere? Really?
Well, that's a good question. I think that a lot of the things that organizations like Chambers of Commerce do and communities do, people live in a community not just because the job is there, but they want to have theater, they want to have a beautiful environment in which to live, they want to have good post-secondary education, they want to have good elementary education for their children, they want to have access to a physician, they want to have easy access in and out. And by the way, another show, we should talk about the fact that we really need to expand our airport, but we'll do that another time. But those are the types of things that people want to live in a community where they can access. Maybe they can live in a small town environment, but they can access some of the things that we'll also be able to get in a big city. Just this past weekend, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce held their annual conference here, and we had delegates here from coast to coast. And one of the things that many of them commented on was they couldn't believe how many great restaurants that we had in Fredericton, considering that Fredericton is not a very large city. And they were just thrilled with what Fredericton had to offer. And I think that's the type of thing. We have to create an environment that people want to live in, and we have to create a business environment that people want to do business in.
People want to be engaged, and they want to be employed, and they want to be supported. So if they're able to find employment, they're able to become involved in the community, and they have the support of the community, they want to stay in the community.
And it's meaningful, gainful employment too, right? For the studies that I know we've participated in, and also other organizations that work in the post-secondary industry have done on young people and what are their migration habits. We know that there's a threshold. There's a rough salary threshold that what will they stay in New Brunswick for, what will they not stay in New Brunswick for. If we don't pay young people enough money, forget giving them jobs to start with, right? If we don't give them enough money to begin with and treat them properly as employees, they won't stay. Why be poor in Fredericton when you could be poor in Montreal? Where again, the standard of living is significantly higher, where you've got all those restaurants, all those, the culture, the theater, everything that you need there. And this is part of the work that the Alliance does, right? It's trying to express these frustrations and these desires of our membership to the business community, to government, and saying you have to start taking young people seriously, or there will continue to be this trend of out-migration, of people not staying because they don't feel that their skills are valued here. I mean, we can have an entire show on the idea of precarious work, right? The idea of young people being underemployed and not employed full-time in terms of indeterminate jobs. That's a reality of particularly my generation. And especially here with the kinds of economies that we have of seasonal work, there has to be some sort of a movement within the labor market and labor force that would continue to attract young people to stay here, because we do have some that stay. We have quite a number that stay actually, but there's a reason why they're staying, and part of that has to do with how they're treated in terms of individuals within a community.
And the nice thing about New Brunswick is you can be a big fish in a small pond. So you don't have the massive competition that you have in Toronto or even Halifax. So you can you're able to network with people more easily. You're able to get bigger assignments because you might be the only person doing that job on a team. Mm-hmm. So you can actually, in some cases, you can grow your career even quicker if you stay in New Brunswick. Yeah.
You're in a good spot too. I mean, Fredericton, St. John, if you're a university student or if you're a young professional in those cities, you're only 5-6 hours from Boston. From Quebec City, from Halifax, from St. John's, you know, there's quite a bit of a radius if you're willing to go that far from Fredericton and St. John. And from Moncton, you're even closer. You get to PEI as well. And so there's lots of incentives as a young professional to be in New Brunswick, if all the other things are in place.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to the phone lines for a second because we have John calling back in from Moncton. Hello, John.
How are you doing?
Good.
I'm not trying to hog the airways. I got a couple questions after my first question. Number one, the young gentleman stated that these people aren't new. They've been here 4 or 5 years. That's fine and dandy. We've got people who've been here 25, 35, 40 years. So I don't think that's a good correlation. Number two, the lady mentioned that if a guy from the province walked in for that job tomorrow and had the qualifications, he would probably get it. Has this panel discussed with the government through their training programs what we are going to require? Because if you don't tell them, they don't know how to train or what to train these people for. We're bringing in people that are already trained. My question is, why don't we train our own for the same requisition? That's all I got to ask this trip. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I think in a little bit in answer to what John's asking, certainly post-secondary education institutions are working hard to determine what the needs are, what the skills gaps are, and what is required in the workforce, because they want to train people for the right jobs. Not just universities, but we have some great community colleges here, and community colleges can be very nimble in changing their courses to reflect what the needs are in the community. So, you know, I think that, you know, the government is studying these things, and they are constantly trying to provide skills and training in the specific areas that are the most required in terms of job readiness. So, and I see other programs that help people get back to work who perhaps been out of the workforce, and trying to get them skilled up to positions in the workforce. So I think that's being done, but I think it's going to take a whole basket full of things, John. It's going to take more than training certain people who are already here. It's going to be a combination of that. Let's get the people who are here that want to work trained in skilled areas where they can be employed, and let's bring people in who have those skills that we don't have here. It's a whole combination of things. There's no one simple solution. I think it's a variety of things that will work together to create the kind of employment and the kind of economy in our province that we need to go forward.
And so my Blue Spurs, we participate in a number of co-op and internship programs with UMB, with MBCC. We're taking these students in and giving them on-the-job experience, hopefully to potentially hire them after they graduate. And a couple of years ago, we actually had a boot camp, and we had 10 high-potential First Nation students come in, and we taught them web development from the ground up. And anybody who completed the program had a guaranteed job offer. So businesses are still investing in local people, but there's a balance as well. So we're not training new graduates who have recently come in for these jobs. The international people that we're hiring have very, very senior positions that we just don't have the capacity and don't have the time to train for.
Just a couple of thoughts. The first of which is the idea of not having enough people to train for, and you know, we've kind of skirted around the issue on this panel, but even if every New Brunswicker had the skills we needed for all the jobs we needed and we're all fully employed, there still aren't enough New Brunswickers. And you know, I think that, John, certainly this idea of our own versus other people, I think that's a mindset that as a province we're going to have to get out of, because again, even if we were at full employment, there was no perceived skills gap between the labor force and the jobs need. There simply aren't enough of us to fulfill the requirements of that if we want to maintain the kind of lifestyle that we have here on the East Coast. And then the second thing I wanted to say is why can't we train our own for these? And it goes back to what Karla was saying in the previous segment of, you know, we can't predict the future of the labor market and of the labor force. You know, the work that Blue Spurs is doing is bleeding edge. It's so far on the edge that there are so few people specialized in what it is that they're looking at. You know, for someone who's my age, looking ahead for the future, 70% of the jobs over the next 30 years have not been invented yet. We don't know what the technical skills we will need for the next 30 years will be. You know, governments have tried this across the country and across the world, where they gamble on certain industries, they gamble on certain sectors, they gamble on certain technical skills that may be required in the next 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years pass, they realize that those skills, now that they've taken 5 to 10 years to get to the point where people are trained, are now out of date. New Brunswick's done that. We've tried that. It hasn't worked. I think what it is that we're saying on this panel is that the theory behind this economic development model of trying to bring in international talent and talent from outside of New Brunswick to incorporate into the New Brunswick talent pool is doing something different. What we've done in the past hasn't worked. It won't work in the future if we just keep trying to do it.
Alrighty. Branching off from that topic, I'd like to actually start talking about attracting and retaining students in the province. Now, the Chamber and the MBSA, they came together to craft a policy to try and encourage foreign students to stay in New Brunswick after graduation. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what that resolution was?
Sure, that was the resolution I mentioned earlier that we presented at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce Annual General Conference. It was passed by 93.6% of the delegates there, so we were pretty excited about that. So this has now become part of the National Canadian Chamber of Commerce platform of advocacy. So they will be advocating on behalf of international students to retain them here. There are 6 different areas. One we've already talked about, which was the Canada Summer Jobs. Also, currently, international students have to get a separate work permit to participate in co-ops and internships. We're recommending that not be the case. The third thing is that there's a postgraduate job search time period. We want to expand that from 90 days to 6 months. So there's no bridge extension study permit needed. We also want to suggest counting all time spent in Canada as an international student towards citizenship eligibility. Currently it's half the time is counted towards. And also change the length of time for which a postgrad work permit can be valid to 5 years. Currently it's 3 years. And the final item is to expedite the process for students to receive their visas, as well as processing times for permanent residency applications, as long as they graduated from a recognized Canadian institution and are currently employed. So those are all things that we think are going to help to keep those international students here, because they've come here, because they've set down roots. We, as Rob has mentioned, we need to bring more people into our workforce just to fill the gaps that are already there. These are students that are already here. They've already committed to our communities. They've already decided they want to be in Canada. We're living in a climate where not every country is as welcoming to newcomers as Canada is. We want to continue that, and this is a great way. These people are already here. Let's make it easier for them to stay. So we were pretty excited that that got passed by delegates from across the country, and we're looking forward to seeing some positive results. Certainly the Canadian Chamber will be taking this to Ottawa and asking for these changes from the federal government.
Now, why was it that international students weren't eligible for the National Summer Jobs programs?
Did you say why?
Yeah.
I think that's a question for the Minister
Yeah?
of Employment, Skills and Development.
All right. I'll save that one then for later.
I will say, though, again, that international students are eligible for the provincial SEED program. And that's really important because we're one of the only provinces in the country that allows international students to stay and work in New Brunswick.
All right. So now going back to this resolution. So by changing this, do you hope to be able to retain more graduate? Like specifically, how would they sway their post-graduation options realistically?
Well, it would just be easier for them to stay. They would be, they would have more time to find a job. They would have less, I guess, red tape in terms of extra work permits, just making it easier for people to stay. So that was our intention.
And again, this is not a be-all and end-all, right? Like, it's
No,
not that
this
this
is one
resolution
thing.
is passed
Yeah.
and say even if the Canadian Chamber can convince government to adopt all the resolution or all the recommendations that the Fredericton Chamber has put forward, that's not the golden or the silver bullet, I think is the expression. This is working in tandem with other things like ensuring that international students, once they're eligible for co-op over the summer, have co-op placements, have the networks that they have to stay here. As with young people, you can't predict migration patterns. We know that there's one trend and they tend to move towards major urban centers. That's just, we're not going to overcome that trend with this resolution. But what we're hoping to do is with this, especially here in New Brunswick through the pilot where there are exemptions for international students as a special stream within the pilot, we're hoping that gives them the option to stay here in New Brunswick, which they may not otherwise have had.
So just to give an example of how some of the other programs that we're doing that are, I guess, putting this into motion, just today we co-hosted with Ignite Fredericton, Opportunities New Brunswick, and the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, an event called Choose Fredericton. So this activity was started in 2013 by the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce and Ignite Fredericton, and we've been holding this event every year. It's basically, it kind of touches all of the things we've talked about today. It's a business and student networking event where students come and there are people who are called connectors, And my job.
I'm sorry.
We're going to a break?
We'll have to cut you off there because we ran out of time. Thank you, though, all of you for joining us today. For those listening in, we had Krista Ross, member of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, in. We had Robert Burroughs, a member of the New Brunswick Student Alliance, and Karla Pooley, a member of Blue Spurs. The night's topic was immigration and job opportunities in New Brunswick. So this was Voice of the Province, and I'm Troy Glover, and I'd like to wish all of you a good night.